Tonight we're diving into more than just soil, the ecosystem behind it, and the elements that create successful plant growing. Soil science to success. We're diving in with Nubs and friends, so won't you come join the conversation? Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Organically Blunt. I am Jay Blaze, your host, and this evening we have the pleasure and the opportunity to speak with not only Nubs, but his friends as well. He brought along Josh Hedberg and Dr. Faust. Welcome to the Organically Blunt show. So let's go around the room with the first question, and let's dive right into things. We'll start from my right, which we'll start with Josh, then we'll go Nubs, then we'll go Doctor. And what we'll do is we'll have you guys answer the questions. So the question starting out is, what got you guys into soil science and cultivation, and who are you? Give yourself a little bit of an introduction on top of it.
All right. My name's Josh Hedberg. I'm the Director of Sales and Specialty Crops for BioAg. I've been doing that for about 6 years now. I formerly was an owner of the Indoor Garden Center in Salem, Oregon. I started working there when I was about 22 in 2001. And I worked there until 2016 when I closed the doors. I got to help a lot of people with a lot of gardens for a long time. That's where I met Bob, who introduced me to the idea of soil and science. You know, I got to say I had a really good teacher there when it came to learning that stuff. And I was put in a very lucky position at a very young age to be surrounded by people that were far smarter than me and more well-educated, and followed their lead. And it has led me to nothing but success. And I got Bob to thank for a big chunk of that here.
Excellent. Definitely. And you, Nubs, what got you into not just the growing of it, but a little bit of the soil science behind it too?
Really, it was about turning the health around for myself at first, and then I started to do a lot of research around it in, with cannabis and the soil and everything. And I have this passion for cannabis and that. And when people started to see that, I started to get into nutrient side of everything with Dave Payne and a few of the others. And that's where the passion and everything started to come in with soil science, Patrick, the Soil King, BioAg, and everybody. But really, it boils right down to the health of America and my family. That's where it came from.
Definitely. And Doctor, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here. It's always great to have somebody that has knowledge and wisdom, and not only that, but experience. So could you give us a little bit of your backing on how you got involved with the science of the soil and the cultivation?
You talking to me? This is Robert Faust.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I wasn't sure he could hear me. Yeah, well, what a story. Well, I mean,
This might take a second.
My grandfather had a farm. I come from a background of people that farmed in southeast Pennsylvania since 1733.
Wow.
And my fondest memories was a little kid spending the weekends with my grandfather on his farm. And it was a traditional Pennsylvania Dutch type farm with combination of livestock and crops and cash crops and feed crops and dairy, and really the model for sustainability as far as that goes. I never really thought, I just loved being there. I mean, I like the lifestyle and, being there. I live in the woods now. In fact, I've just about always lived on a farm. I've owned 5 or 6 farms. I like to build them up. And I live on kind of a homestead now, so I'm not really commercial farming, but I have been a commercial farmer and livestock and crops. And I guess so I grew my first hemp plants, cannabis plants from, saving some seeds from like a bag of seedy Mexican or something, because you didn't know in those days back in 68, and, along the edge of the cornfields, right? So I found,
yeah.
it grows pretty good. Same place as corn. And many, many years later, I found out the reason my ancestors came to Pennsylvania. And that's because they got a visit from William Penn, the guy that started Pennsylvania. And he came over to the Rhineland, and wasn't Germany then. It was the Holy Roman Empire, and it was the Kingdom of Hesse, Prussia. So he came over and he wanted to find guys that were growing hemp. They could grow hemp because they needed hemp for the naval operations out of Philadelphia, and you needed lots and lots and lots of hemp for the sailing ships back in the day. And so they came over himself, and recruited farmers, told them, come on to Pennsylvania, man, you get good land, and hey, it's a good deal, And so they came over in 1733, and they came from a place called Langenselbold. Okay, so that means in German, it means long sailboat.
Wow.
Okay, so the people that farmed there was an industry of making sail and rigging for river sailboats because there wasn't any engines, right? So how are you going to get back to Amsterdam? But anyway, so they were using sail. Required a huge amount of hemp to do it. So that's what happened. So then these people that were hemp farmers came over and grew hemp. And in the area that I grew up, I never thought about it much, but there's places like Hempstead Township and Hemp Hill Road and hemp this, hemp that. So yeah. So I grew some hemp for the first time in I don't know how many years. But how did I get into soil science? Okay, so I was interested in ecology, ecological, because I was about farm preservation, soil preservation, preserving the culture,
definitely sustainability.
Yeah, sustainability. All the words they're using now, they say, well, what can we do for sustainability? What about sustainability? What's the... Hey, we had it. Go there today. Go there today. You'll see it. You'll see Amish Mennonites nowadays there. And they're very productive, beautiful farms. It's been farming there for 250 years, and then Native Americans before them. So we did have a sustainable system. So my study, I actually, as an agroecologist, I'm looking at the interrelationships between people, the environment, the crops, the animals, the insects. So I went to the University of Delaware and studied entomology and applied ecology, which is as close as I could get in those days. And so I didn't like the university position on all this stuff. I mean, it was really, it was actually almost impossible to find a university that taught agricultural ecology. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Maybe UC Santa Cruz. Yeah. So actually, I ended up over time. Well, I'm not going to go into that part yet, but anyway, as an entomologist, my interest was biological control. So I'm looking for I grew up in the chemical capital of the world. We're DuPont, we're Syngenta. It's Wilmington, Delaware. Everybody was a chemist. All my friends' parents were PhD chemists and worked for DuPont, experimental station. I grew up in that world. I didn't like it because I knew early on the problem with these chemicals. And they're gonna
Absolutely.
cause. And
I can relate to that. Bayer Corporation. I live on a
yeah,
creek right here, and Bayer Corporation. They don't just make medicine, but they make ice melt,
no, I
and
know.
and the runoff is going into this creek here. So they had to hook the whole community up to city water instead of well now because the ground is contaminated and we can't drink the groundwater.
Well, that's a common story everywhere, and really that's what motivated me from day one. And I was influenced by not only Acres USA, but prior to that by the biodynamic movement, which was strong in Pennsylvania, or
Absolutely.
it existed in Pennsylvania, let's say. And I learned after going to ag college, University of Delaware College of Agriculture, then I took over the family farm, right? So then I learned to farm from Amish neighbors.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. And the stuff they were doing wasn't supposed to work, according to the university, but it totally did. And so then
Definitely.
down the road, Wilhelm, well, okay, I'll start with not Wilhelm Reich, biodynamic theory and practice by, now I forget exactly, not Wilhelm Reich. I don't know, I got Wilhelm Reich on my mind, but that's about orgone energy. So that's another thing.
Definitely.
But I was influenced by biodynamics. There was people in Pennsylvania that were into biodynamics, Dr. Ennerfred Pfeiffer and Rodale, about Rodale, Organic Farms and Garden Magazine. And I just thought, hey, this is a better way. This chemicals. This is going to destroy the environment. It's somehow I got that in my head at an early age. But ever since I've been trying to offer the alternatives to toxic technology. That's it right there.
Definitely.
So I work with farmers. Here comes the like, okay, tipping point idea here. So as a consultant in biological control and pest management, I was a licensed pest control advisor in California, which is a hard license to get. But I worked with growers in the seed industry. And one of my first clients was in the potato seed industry in Montana, when I lived in Montana. And seed potato has to be disease-free, insect-free. It's a very touchy thing. They grow it in mountain valleys. It's got to be clean and disease-free. And so I heard about something called Humic. A little ad in a magazine, Montana Farmer Stockman. And I never heard of it, but it said that it'll, they called it Clodbuster, Soil Softener Supreme. Well, what is it? Well, it's this stuff you dig out of the desert in New Mexico, And so they sent me a little tiny sample, maybe an ounce. And I said, okay, so I have some pretty bad soil on this piece of ground I bought in Montana. I mean, it was overgrazed. It was like the classic, like overgrazed, land. And I just put some of the soil in a pot, and I put, maybe a teaspoon of this stuff in one pot and nothing in the other. And I planted some corn seed, and I still have the picture. And, the corn was about 3 times taller within a month. I mean, it was like, what? This stuff does something. And so I'm doing research on it. I'm talking to people in the university, and they say, no, that can't work. That doesn't work. It's all got organic matter. There's not enough there to do any good. That's snake oil. That's not. Hey, wait a minute. Now I did the research. That's the scientific method. I observed the result. Okay. So you couldn't change my opinion on that. So we bought a truckload and put it out this guy's potato field, 40 acres of seed potatoes, right? So split the field 20. So we put for about 400 or 500 pounds per acre on the treated side, and the untreated side, nothing is usual program.
Right.
Well, the difference, I still have the pictures. The difference was like night and day. I mean, okay, yes, the potato plants were taller, they were greener, the leaf was bigger. Yes, incredible. You could see with the naked eye right to the row. Okay. But look closer. Insect damage on the untreated side. The leaves were kind of lacy, from what we call Lepidopterus defoliators, like things eating holes in the leaves, like little caterpillars, let's say. So a lot of damage on the untreated side. The side with humate, clean. And the color was a deeper, shiny blue-green and had a sheen to it. And I'm saying, oh my God, this is the answer. I've discovered resistance to insects. Holy mackerel, this is gonna, this is it, right?
Right.
Amazing. It's about nutrition. See, that's when it popped. That was the tipping point for me. Okay. It's about nutrition in the soil. It's about something in the soil. It's about something this black dirt stuff is doing in an amazingly small amount per acre. And nobody had a clue for years, about what that could be. Matter of fact, they just denied it. It's just like, no, get out of here. It wasn't a real thing at all. It was a real thing to me. I wasn't going to give up. And that was 60 years ago. Now, since then, we are very, very close to knowing why that happened. Yeah. And it's because we didn't have the science in those days. The science is molecular genetics, cell biology.
Hey, Bob, quick question. How many things did they identify in humic acid that were beneficial? Was it like 900 or was it 1,800 different?
Well, 800, but there's that's just preliminary. But I mean, there's been a published paper that have identified 800, but that's just on a spectroscope. The actual names of those things, no, we don't know what the names of them are. We know what groups of biochemistry they are in. Your phenols, your what they call the aromatics. You have to understand organic chemistry and biochemistry to get it. And more than that, you have to also understand molecular pathways that certain chemical compounds that are a part of humic acids.
Right.
There's stuff in there, in other words, we know there's at least 800, right? So some of those things are what they call aromatic groups, aromacicity, okay, that's a bigger category. And then you have your quinones, your polyphenols, and all that. I won't go into that. I can go into that. I'm used to that in scientific conferences. But
careful with the big words, Bob. Don't big word me again.
We call that up in my neck of woods barbershop talk. You go up to the barbershop and you're going to hear a little bit of everything, and you're going to get educated on something that you didn't know. But by the time you leave, you're going to know quite a bit, because that's just how it happens at the barbershop.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Well, down at the coffee shop if you're a farmer, in the morning.
Yeah.
But of course they'd probably, but here's the bottom line on that. Doesn't matter. Like, all that doesn't matter. It matters to scientists. It matters to me. It matters if you want to give it credibility. But the thing of it is, you get into something this complex. Like humic substances is the most complex chemistry on Earth. Okay. So trying to get into that with, what's important is what it does. And you can take this back in history. See, as an agroecologist, I studied sustainable agricultural systems around the world. What works, what doesn't. Okay. And just to make it simple, the bottom line is production of humic substances. Simple as that.
Absolutely.
You can simplify this down to a very simple level. And that's why I
Right.
wrote the paper on ancient Hawaiian agriculture as a model for sustainability. So how did a Stone Age culture with no metals, no metal tools, no contact with civilization? They're on the island of Hawaii. They're in the Hawaiian Islands, 2,400 miles from anywhere. They didn't import anything. They didn't buy fertilizers or pesticides. How did they do it? And I'm
Definitely.
not saying they did it for a couple hundred years either.
Right.
They did it for a
Did it-
couple thousand years.
Did it since the sense of time. I mean, land has been tilled some way since the sense of time.
Yeah. Well,
And
it's dead
they
there now.
figured out. Yep.
It's dead.
But that leads me into a question. I want to ask all of you, and you kind of leave it open to anybody to answer. But you say like humic acid and fulvic and even silica. We haven't dived into silica yet, but silica
It's part
is
of
the
it.
next subject I kind of want to dive a little bit into. Why is silica such a powerful element that a lot of people overlook? Me personally, I use it in my garden beds. I add it, and I can see bigger stalks. I see better uptake when it comes to moisture, and a lot of benefits. Your plant is just a lot huger. But can we break it down without getting too scientific, but enough that everybody in the audience can understand its benefit?
Well, yeah. I mean,
one-
it's deep chemistry in a way, but
Let's go for the
let's
simple
get
answer.
back to the simple stuff. Okay.
Right, dumbing it down like Dave says right there. Like said, you see
I'm not gonna dumb
amazing
it
stuff
down.
with the foliar spray and everything. You can
Yeah.
dip your clones; they get bigger and everything.
No, it's all part of the same situation. Like I said, how did the
Right.
Hawaiians, how did everybody, not just Hawaiians, how did they maintain soil fertility sustainably without buying anything? And they couldn't buy anything because they didn't have any money and there wasn't anything to buy. Okay, but how did they do it? Okay, it's so crazy simple. And it leads into all these other questions. Okay, they stripped leaves from trees. And the trees they used were what they call kikuyu nut, which also called candle nut. So it's a tropical hardwood broadleaf tree that produces a fruit, a nut that they use just for a candle because it has an oil and it burns. Okay. So that tree, along with later in history, mango, and they said little kids to climb up trees and they'd strip the leaves off the trees. They'd put those leaves on the ground. They would flood the paddock, or maybe it was already rainy season, and they'd tromp them in with their feet.
Wow.
Done. There you go. So the leaves would break down because humic acid is nothing more than the end product of decomposition of organic matter. Humic substances are formed from broadleaf tree leaves and preferably euphorbiae. That's trees that produce latex, like mango and Indian rubber tree, ficus.
Wow.
And so that's broken down by a fungi. And in that decomposition, it's broken down as far as it can possibly be broken down. That's humic acid. Okay. Those leaves also take up minerals from deep in the soil. They can take up silica because it takes humic acid to make silica available in an acid form, monosilicic acid. So the two go hand in hand in nature.
Sure.
Right.
Definitely.
And so all you got to do is strip the leaves off trees that are deep rooted that bring silica, it's the most common element on earth, practically, and other elements up, and they accumulate in the leaf, and then the leaf is tromped in the ground. Okay. Or if it's a natural forest, it's just over time, the leaves, the branches, the bark is lignin. Lignin is the precursor for humic acids. Okay. Now, lignin is hard to digest. It's undigestible, except for these fungi that make enzymes that can break it down. Bacteria do not. Forget bacteria for now.
Mhm.
I get into that story about bacteria.
That's a different ball of wax.
Right.
Definitely. Yep.
So
You
it's
know-
nothing more than leaves. Okay, I want to get so stupid simple here. You take leaves, you drop them into the mud.
Mhm.
There's the program. And from that, you're getting humic substances. And humic substances, fulvic, what's the difference between fulvic and humic?
I was going to ask that, and that's a very
It's
good
nothing
question.
more than a fraction. It's like, what's the difference between gasoline and diesel fuel?
Yes, one is a slightly more
Comes from the
refined
same
version of the
thing.
other, and the active fraction of the molecule.
Right. So gasoline is one thing, and diesel fuel is a heavier molecule. Motor oil is a heavy. Crude oil is super heavy.
Okay.
Jet fuel is and gasoline are light molecules. It's the same as humic substances. Fulvic acid is defined as the acid-soluble fraction of humic substances.
Definitely.
You can take the humates and make an extract from the soil or peat or compost or anything, and you're going to get a brown, blackish solution. Well, if you add acid to it, it's going to separate. The brown stuff is going to hit the bottom, and you're going to have a yellow solution. That's fulvic acid. That's
Wow.
the acid-soluble fraction. So it's all the same thing. Now, the humic acid feeds the soil microorganisms, and the fulvic acid feeds the plant because it's a light molecule.
Mhm.
It can be taken up effectively by the plant. The humic acid is a heavy molecule, cannot be. It's like trying to put diesel fuel in your gas-powered tractor. Well, good luck, you know.
Right.
You know,
Same principle.
one of the best things that Bob told me years ago was humic acid is an investment in the future, and fulvic acid is today what I need today.
Yeah, that's about it.
That's a good way to put it, so we can understand it. Because even myself included, I remember dealing with a company when I first started this show called Organics Alive, and not to throw their name out there with any type of advertising. This is just an example. They sent me these little bottles that said fulvic and humic, and as somebody that was new to home growing, maybe you can put it into better perspective. I did not know how to utilize any of it or even apply it or where to begin. I mean, where would you suggest someone getting that type of information, or even how they would get started in something like that?
Well, here's the beauty.
It's all well known.
Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I mean, we know for a long time we've known what the optimum level of fulvic acid in a soil or a media is. It's about 15 ppm. This is not like any mystery behind any of this at this point. We know what's optimum. We have a curve, a yield curve, like how much do you get 100% or you get 50%. Depends on how much you use and what concentration. And if you get to a certain level of optimum, beyond that, it doesn't do anything more. It's not going to do anything more. And then beyond that, it takes you the other way. In other words, too much humic substances can reduce the yield.
Okay.
Or do
Too much
nothing.
good thing.
Or you hit the right number, but then you went too far and it went the other way. So very important. Very
Absolutely.
important to know what you have and how much to use. Crucial. People would tend to use too much, and then things would look kind of tough. The plant would get kind of wilty. And no, you have to hit it right on the head, right?
Definitely.
Because if you don't use optimum amount, the yield potential is 100% yield increase. Okay. Now, if you look at some of my stuff, we have a yield chart which shows like what different levels do in terms of yield increase, and what the concentration in the soil is, and what the concentration of this added solution is. So the factors in humic substances, what's the dilution? Crucial. Is more important than how much per acre.
Mhm.
Okay,
Right.
so people say, well, how much per acre? Okay, how much liquid does it take you to get full coverage on the crop you're spraying? Let's say if you're using fulvic acid as a spray, which is the most economical and very rapidly effective method.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, there's a specific concentration, all right? And you can get 100% yield increase, or you can use half as much and you'll maybe get a 30% yield increase. So there, you
Mhm.
dial it in. Okay, and the concentration. Okay, now we're going to need something complicated, even for me, because I learned about the importance of this concentration from a Russian scientist, and it's a specialist in humic acid work. He's not with us anymore, but anyway, it has to do with the MNR signaling. Um, it's physics, okay? The concentration is important. Don't make me try to explain it because it's. I don't think I can explain it.
Mhm.
I think I got a small sliver of understanding, but that's because I've read a lot of stuff. But for the normal person at home, they're probably not going to understand it,
No, they just follow
Well,
the directions on our label.
Right.
Follow the
and
Yep.
let me drop a little thing in there. One of my first times using humic acid was me and my friend Rick, who I worked with at my grow store. We got a new type of soil in, and I had some fresh blueberry cuts from my medical marijuana garden that I was going to throw into my hydro system. And he's like, "You should do these in dirt, so we can try this dirt and see what it does." So I'm like, okay, let's do it organic then, because I've never tried organic gardening before. So
Right.
he gave me a bag of grow guano, a bag of bloom guano, and a bottle of humic acid, and a bottle of seaweed. And that's what I used to grow these plants in 5-gallon containers. So we took, I don't remember, I think it was right when Down to Earth came out with their first potting soil. So it was Down to Earth potting soil. It was the 931 grow guano, and it was the 070 bat guano. And I just throw in a couple of heaping cups in each container, mix it up real good. And I started watering it with plain water, and I kind of forgot about the humic acid for the first week. And I'm like, "Hey, man, these are kind of sitting here." It's like, "Well, you've been watering with the humic and the seaweed," and I'm like, "I forgot about the humic and the seaweed." So I go at home that day and I start watering with it. And Rick calls me up. He's like, "Hey, I forgot to tell you, you need to spray twice a week with that too." So I start foliar spraying and watering with this humic acid, and all of a sudden, the soil plants are growing faster than my hydro plants, which are in bubble buckets. They jumped in, just blew up on me, and I'm like, "What the shit is this?" Because I'm the hydro guy. I can't have soil guys growing plants that are faster and better looking than mine. This cannot be. I'm Josh from the grow store. I got to know what I'm talking about. So all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, time to set the hydro system stuff aside here and figure out this soil thing. So, I run the cycle, and it was some of the best tasting blueberry. It wasn't even close to the hydro stuff. It had purple leaves. The yield wasn't the same because I was in smaller pots. I figured out that if I needed bigger yields with that organic system, I needed a bigger root zone. And so I grew larger, fewer plants because those are the rules we had to follow as medical, gardeners. And that's the way we did it back then, 15 gallons at least. Yep. When I started doing that with organics, I was getting at least a pound or two per plant, but my quality was night and day. And I could, have jars sitting around for a year and a half, and it still tastes pretty good, where my hydro stuff's turned into hay in 6 months. So if I didn't get rid of it right away, it was, you're stuck with it. And that's what really turned me on to the, organic gardening, and the fact that I could reuse everything. I went from spending, $3,000 to $4,000 a cycle on just chemicals and cleaning up my system to spending like around, $900, and my yields were really close, but my quality was, 10 times better than what it was. Everything tasted like it looked, and it smelled like it should. And it, faded to a nice, light pink or purple or a lighter green. Everything would flush and everything would go through, that cycle of fall, which was so much harder to do with my hydro systems. And then I'm like, well, if I can get this with that, what happens if I use some of this stuff in my hydro system? And that's about the time I met Bob and he starts introducing me to the fulvic acid.
Okay.
And so our store was the first store in Oregon to bring in advanced nutrients, and one of their products was a fulvic acid. So the Department of Ag was a couple blocks down the street from our store, and they loved to come in and pull stuff off my shelf that wasn't registered, and nothing from Advanced back then was registered because I ordered it from out of the country. Not their fault. I'm ordering foreign nutrients, and then they're in my store pulling the stuff off the shelf because it's obviously not registered. And Bob walks in, and he's like, "Hey, I sell that stuff too, and my stuff's registered." And I'm like, "Bob, why am I ordering this stuff from Canada?" So he sent me some bottles the next day. I took some home, and I start spraying with his fulvic acid instead of the Canadian stuff, and the difference was so huge, so quick. Having to go from just using humic acid to using humic and fulvic, with a seaweed, and this is before I figured out silica as well. That was the little old ladies from the Orchid Club. They turned me on to silica, and then I found out Bob here had a silica, and then it was off to the races. And then
That's
it was,
awesome.
that was my combo for any and every system, whether it was organic, chemical, or otherwise. Humic, fulvic, seaweed, silica. It will always help. It will never hurt if it's applied the way it should be. And that's taking whatever the bottle tells you, cut it in half. Start at half at what it tells you. It's not how much you can use, it's how little you can get by with. Anyone tells you to use full strength is selling you something.
No.
You don't need that. You need to find out
Right.
what your lowest point is that's going to give you that maximum yield. That's what matters with gardening. That means you're not wasting it. You're not poisoning the ground. You're not poisoning the well. It's going into the plant. The plant's getting used. The stalk, the stem, everything else gets recycled back into the soil.
Right. Definitely. So I want to pivot this conversation towards Nubs a little bit. Nubs, you've been the bridge here. You brought everything together and you helped bring the science and knowledge to this space. But what inspired you to use BioAg and make this conversation happen today?
Really, back when I was introduced to BioAg from Giggles and everything, and found out about the fulvic acid and just the amazement of it, and I started to dive into that. It's pretty wild. Like, you can literally turn sand into soil,
I would have to see it firsthand myself, just like you probably were the first time. You're like, oh, you're selling me something, but I'm going to try it, and that's how a lot of these guys are feeling. I've got a lot of people in the audience that are newer and they don't understand it. So that's why I'm glad you guys brought these two gentlemen on, because, it brings a lot of knowledge and wealth to this conversation, because a lot of us do not know about this. And we get introduced to it, and like you guys said, you can overdo it. And that's the biggest thing. We want to try to avoid that and try to avoid new growers from having to hit that mark of overdoing it. So, as a grower using Bob's and Josh's products that they represent, do you feel it is something that is beneficial for somebody on an entry home level?
Oh, absolutely. And that's what's great for even commercial home growers, everything. Bob's products, BioAg, make turning to organics easy. It simplifies everything, takes away problems, all of it.
Definitely. And the biggest thing is, do you use all three parts of these elements in your grow, or do you just lean heavy more on one than the other personally?
I actually have tried all the products. I've been amazed by them as I've gone through exploring the products. The Bio Super Sil, I absolutely love. The fulvic acid, full power, is another favorite of mine. But, oh, heck, where was I going with that? Like, repeat the question again.
Basically, just trying to figure out what one you use more than the other. Like, is there one product that you leaned heavier on than the rest as far as these three elements, fulvic, humic, and silica? Which one do you feel you use the most out of them three?
Well, definitely the Bio Super Sil. Like I said, it's one of the best products that they have. You know, with the silicas, you can foliar spray it onto your clones and watch it literally within hours be bigger than the other clones. That kind of stuff amazes me. The full power fulvic acid at 30%. You do your research on this stuff and what these guys have done, it's absolutely amazing. There's not other companies out there doing this. They're on the forefront of this technology. And another product that I think they're not touching off on that I love is a multi-aminos. You know, when you start to see deficiencies in your grow, like missing calcium or nitro and that, man, I just jumped to that multi-amino, bump that in there, and I don't see issues either. It's just, like I said, I absolutely love these products and what they can do for everybody. And you're bringing the health, like I said, the organic side back to cannabis, back to agriculture, everything.
Definitely. You know, and we got Steve out here in the audience, and he wants me to ask, and I'm guessing he probably pointed this towards the doc here, this question, but I want to entertain it because Steve has been a good fan, a good mentor, and just a good overall person in the community. And
I think Bob is taking a short hiatus. So there he is. A question for you, Bob.
He wants me to
ask your
about cough a little bit.
No problem. Take your time. Let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready. Go ahead.
All right. So Potent Ponics here wants to know about, hopefully I pronounced this right, Tannins. He says, you know so much about it, and he hasn't heard anyone else talk about it, and he wants to hear a little more knowledge on that.
Tannins, Bob.
Say again.
He's asking about tannins.
Tannins. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. Okay. Well, you know, when I first started doing this in Hawaii is where I developed these products. And we were using them for human health. And I work with a woman who's an MD, and I've been working with her ever since. We have another website that's just the human health part, right? The human health product is called Wujinsan. It's the same as Full Power. Wujinsan means golden medicine or black gold medicine in Chinese. It's a traditional Chinese medicine. Okay, so working with some scientists in Germany, they found that this product, Full Power or Wujinsan, whatever, fulvic acid, as a longevity substance. They were doing studies to find things that increase longevity. Okay, it's pretty deep science. Okay, this is where I get the molecular biology and what's really happening. Okay, so it turns out that the suspected components that activate these pathways. Okay, the pathways that are activated are the M25 pathway. These are pathways that turn on a switch in a cell. I'm not talking about plants here. I'm talking about cells. It switches on like us turning on a switch. Okay, and that switch activates pathogen resistance. Other pathway is plant growth regulator production. So you're turning switches on that activate the cell, whether it's a plant or an animal, own production of things. Like in animals, it'd be insulin-like pathways. In plants, it's a plant growth regulator pathway that's activated. Okay, so what do they think the bottom line was? Tannins. Okay, what's the color of the fulvic acid? It's a golden yellow. Have you ever been like in a mountain stream, especially on the East Coast, Pennsylvania, New York, etc.? It's hard. It's a little different, not a lot different than Oregon, but it's mostly oak trees. Okay, the water is tea colored. Okay, and that it happens to be a very, very productive fishery, trout fishery, where you have that. But okay, but the scientists in Germany, and they're very sophisticated. It's Humboldt University of Berlin. Okay, it really enlightened me. But the tannins are the suspected activators of those pathways. That's the point. But tannins is not a simple thing. Like there's not much in chemistry that's a simple thing. There's many tannins. Okay, tannins is a broad group in another group called polyphenols. Okay, so tannins are the key. Now, tannins are what's in leaves. They're what's in branches. It's what's in bark. It's the precursors of humic acid, humic substances. So absolutely. So what happens when you cut the forest down and you just farm the land with chemicals year after year? There's never any cover crops. The forests have been chopped down for many, many years. What happens? The soil gets hard, crusty, the yield go down, the diseases are rampant. You're on to spray and pray, okay? And you're on a spray and pray program. Now, what about human health? Same thing. The resistance to disease goes down. All these factors start to go to help. Shorter longevity, like we're getting in the U.S. Actually, the longevity, we're not the longest living people in the world. Okay. We have a lot of cancer. We have a lot of metabolic diseases. Okay. Tannins. See, we're back to my simple story of the Hawaiians using leaves. See, I don't have to get into like molecular genetics and cell biology, but people want me to because they want to have some kind of proof or something. Well, do you even believe me about this? I don't know, but that's not my point. My point is there were civilizations that functioned for thousands of years. They were healthier than we are today, and everything was good. Okay. And that's because leaves, forests, rotation, even the Maya. I went down to Belize in South America near the Guatemalan border with Mayan Indians. And I went into a grow area that's now a jungle that the Mayans used. And how did they get such fertility to support such a big population? They didn't buy fertilizer either. Leaves, they just did it in a different way. They dug canals and they had raised beds in these low-lying areas, and they would throw all the crop residue and leaves in these ditches, and it would rot in the water. It would decompose in the water, and then they dig it back up and put it on the land.
Right.
So all sustainable systems, including what happened here in the Willamette Valley with Native Americans, and I'm really up to speed on that too. That's the program. Mm-hmm. So now it's so unbelievably simple. See, so now we're talking about the real details of tannins, humic substances, plant growth regulators. No.
This really makes me laugh. It really makes me laugh because my grandfather, he passed away for going on 5 years this year. Well, this next Christmas, he was 80, and he was a hemp farmer, and he taught me a lot of the organics of what I know. And that's what he did. We had a grow off one summer. It was the last summer he grew with me before he passed. And he took all the leaves and a bunch of other stuff that he gathered out of the woods, and he just threw them in a big, we have these big 10 ash buckets for like wood stoves. And he threw it all in there. It was cleaned out. It was good. And he threw everything in there and let it just decompose. And he took a ladle and he would scoop the ladle and go put it on his plants every day. And I used to laugh at him like, you kooky old man, what are you doing? Like, but then his plants would be like 2 times the size of mine. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you're doing something here that I don't even understand. But so I try to apply a lot of that in my grow now, and people still are like, they're like, you're letting that decompose and that's not going to be healthy for the plant. And it's like, why? Well, why isn't it? It's got to break down anyway. I mean,
yeah. Soil microbiology. See, that's the next frontier, the next area. And again, we're back to the same story almost, except we know that fungal dominance, that soils go bad. They get hard and unproductive and over time, because eventually they become bacterial dominant. In other words, there's not enough food for the fungi. Let's make it simple. There's not enough food for the fungi. So the
Right.
bacteria can dominate, and
And
then
Bob,
soil
what's the
becomes,
best food for the fungi?
yeah, it's so simple. And silica, like I say, silica plays. You really got to take this seriously, okay? Now, let me just give you a rundown. We're back to silica. Okay, the question was about tannins. Okay, well, I answered that. That's where the leaves
Yes.
come in, the bark, compost.
Okay.
Humates. What's humates? Okay, I didn't even go into that. What do we make full power out of? Our fulvic acid. What do we make it out of? We make it out of fossilized leaves.
Wow.
These are geological deposits. Sometimes they call it geologically concentrated compost. But what it is broadleaf leaves, plants, residue, bark, trees. They got washed into low spots or were ancient swamps. And then the uplift of the Rocky Mountains and then sandstone covering it because of, and then what we use, though, is a much younger stuff that's more like 18,000 years old. So it's young, but it's organic matter that ended up in holes, let's say, after glaciation, what they call potholes. Okay. And then it decomposes. And then it's buried with something, clay or sandstone or something. So, yeah, it's just decomposed organic matter of the right kind to the end point, which is humic acid. You can do it with compost. I was originally involved in the biodynamic world with making biodynamic compost. And of course, that was poo-pooed as snake oil, and that can't work. It goes back to Steiner, Rudolf Steiner in Switzerland. He gave the lecture on biodynamics back in early 19th century, late 19th century. And that's where the whole organic thing started. And then all the spin-offs from that, like organic farming, which is not the same as biodynamic. It all goes back to the same thing, the decomposition of organic matter. And where did Steiner come up with all this? He's an Austrian genius, scientist, okay? Well, he got that from his association with Goethe, Wolfgang von Goethe, who, by the way, wrote the longest epic poem in history called Faust. It's about Dr. Johann Faust, who is my 11th great grandfather. Okay, so
I believe that was about a deal with the
from
devil.
the Vedas. Okay, so Goethe got it from the Indian Vedas. So all the right farming techniques, and organic or biodynamic, or whatever you want to call them, come from the ancient Indian Vedas. Okay, by way of Austria, Switzerland, Germany, Pennsylvania. Okay. But they didn't know the science behind it then. They just knew it worked. Okay. But now we know you have to maintain fungal dominance in the soil. And once that gets out of whack and you have bacterial dominance, it's usually time to go to town and get a job. Okay. Now I have experimentally proven, and I could write a scientific paper on it and nobody could refute it. I proved it last summer that the humic acid, our product, full humic, or full power for that matter. I did the test for that. We did with and without trials. And the soil was submitted to the most high-tech lab in the world, B crop, that tests for like 400,000. I think it's almost 1 million different organisms, biological or microbial organisms in their database. So this is where you take a sample from the soil and you run DNA on it. Okay, and so based on that DNA and an analysis with supercomputers, you can determine like a lot of stuff that's going on with your soil. So what I proved in that soil, I took the worst soil I could find in the Willamette Valley, and that's, there's some pretty bad soil here. It used to be the best in the world. And I demonstrated exactly that. In 60 days, I reversed bacterial dominance to fungal dominance. And then all these criteria, soil health, a zillion complex criteria it's done with DNA, okay, including things like resistance to disease. In fact, what diseases are there in the soil that you got to worry about? What's there before? What's there after? Okay, well, I proved it with the most advanced technology known that only came out in the last couple of years, that absolutely in 60 days or one season, you can turn the soil around. And this is what I was doing in the 70s and 80s with big farms in Idaho, Montana, California. But we didn't know why. We didn't know what was going on. We just knew that the soil the structure became friable. The farmer could go with a higher gear on his tractor for plowing, loosen the soil. All these good things happen. And we didn't know why. We didn't know anything about fungal dominance or anything. But see, we know it works. All over the world. I did a paper. I did a review of all the science all over the world, right? And they all agree. They all agree on fulvic acid, humic acid. This is not something that's out there in left field anymore, right? And now we can prove scientifically we're getting the result that we have to get to be sustainable for us to even survive as a civilization, to even survive as Homo sapiens.
Definitely.
There it is. That's
a lot,
the
lot of knowledge.
People's heads. It's right here. It's here. It's
Definitely.
in their conditioning, their misinformation. We used to have what we called the humus theory of plant nutrition. And then they invented the Haber process to make ammonium nitrate after World War I. And so now they're deciding, oh, yeah, so you can grow plants with just chemical salts. See, that disproves the humus theory of plant growth. So, yeah, but they want to sell this shit, So then they brainwashed everybody, the farmers, that no, this is what you use. Like you want to use like ammonium nitrate and potassium phosphate, all these salts. They're chemical salts.
Yep.
Whereas for hundreds of years before that, maybe thousands of years before that, it was the humus theory. That the humus feeds the plant, the breakdown of the humus in the soil, the organic matter. You're brainwashed. The humus theory
didn't make billionaires.
Yeah, you are brainwashed, Mr. Farmer.
Absolutely. They are too, because I know a brand right now, I won't say any names, but they partnered with another big equipment manufacturer lately. And I'm like, oh, that's like saw. And I'm like, yeah, it's cool. And you guys are growing great plants, but yeah, that's not for me.
Yeah,
sorry.
No.
Well, here's the big question. You're building your plants out of whatever you grow with. That's what those cells are built out of. Do you want them built out of petroleum byproducts, which are salt chemicals, or do you want them built out of organic matter, silica, and humid substances? Those are your choices. You're building out of what you grow with, and you're consuming what you grow.
Yeah,
and and wherever that comes from, any way you slice it with salt fertilizer, the end of that road is a petroleum byproduct. So it's either coming from the tar sands, it's coming from Germany, it's coming from wherever oil comes from, where plastics come from.
Yep.
This is not a sustainable way to keep civilization going. It's not going to work. It's a great way to make a lot of money in the short term.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work. And remember what I said about switching on resistance to pathogens? Well, what if you're eating that food from the plant that's grown with chemical salts only, and there's no humic substances, there's no tannins, there's no activation of resistance to diseases? Do you think that's limited to plants? No, I said cells. We're cells. Plants are cells. Same thing's happening to us. Why do you think there's epidemics and all these things going on? because they're totally deficient in what keeps you healthy, and also what moves heavy metals through your body, the chelating effect of fulvic acid, humic substances in a human body, removing lead, cadmium, keeping that on the move. So no wonder civilizations go to hell, right? I mean, there's no major industrial agricultural civilization survived. Go to Iraq or someplace. I've been to Egypt. I've studied agriculture in Egypt, in the Delta. That's the only ancient agricultural place I've been that's still looking pretty good. Okay. But that's just because they're getting free fulvic acid from the Nile. It comes out of Africa. Okay. So, yeah. So people should be worried about their own health. And that's why I recommend go to my health product website, which is Mana Life Lab, and you get the human versions of these, of fulvic acid and the mushroom, the anti-cancer mushrooms and stuff
That's
like
awesome.
that.
Definitely.
Yeah. So yeah, it's plants and animals and people. It's all, bottom line is that humic substances, which has the silica in the right form, which is, I mean, silica is sand, okay? Silicon dioxide. Well, plants obviously can't use it. It's a biological process that creates the form of silica, which is a silicic acid, that can be actually taken up by the plant. Okay, so if you put a silica salt,
potassium
silicate, or any of these products on the market, you put them in a hydroponic media, it turns white, right? If you use too much.
Yeah,
it's salty.
It's reactive. It reacts with calcium and phosphate and binds it into an insoluble form. Okay, so BioAg Supersil has nano silica. Nano silica can be taken directly into the plant roots, but it's pure silica, elemental silica. It's still not going to help. It's not going to do anything. Except the plant has the ability, which you might expect, has the ability to take nano silica and convert it into silicic acid within the cell.
Mm-hmm.
And that's protecting it from binding with all these other elements, like you use in a salt fertilizer solution. That's the secret of BioAg Supersil. It's not going to react in a media. And again, you can duplicate nature in hydroponics by using the right concentration of humic substances. And actually, BioAg Supersil has a lot of humic substances in it too. I mean, the base of it is humic and fulvic, but it's got the silica, the nano silica. That's the key to the whole thing. Yeah, I mean, the results we get with silica. Here's some of the results that's proven by science. Here they are. Structural support. Silica is essential for the structural integrity of plant cells. Okay. This added strength helps cannabis plants support heavier buds without breaking or bending, which is particularly important during flowering. Stress resistance. Plants with adequate silica levels tend to be more resilient to environmental stressors such as drought, heat, pests. It enhances the plant's overall stress tolerance, promoting healthier growth. Disease resistance. Silica can enhance the plant's immune system. It acts as a barrier against certain pathogens, making plants less susceptible to disease. This is particularly beneficial, listen here, particularly beneficial in preventing fungal infections like powdery mildew, which can thrive in humid conditions. Nutrient uptake. Silica can improve the plant's ability to uptake essential nutrients, especially phosphate. It adds overall efficiency of nutrient absorption. Photosynthesis enhancement. Silica can contribute to improved photosynthesis efficiency. More pH buffering. Silica can help buffer pH levels in the soil or growth media. Terpene production.
There we go.
Suggests that silica may play a role in increased production of terpenes, which are the crucial for flavor, aroma, and medicinal properties of cannabis.
That's something I can speak on because I have data from several commercial gardens. In fact, one that just contacted me this last week, that is a commercial garden from up in, I believe, Boring, Oregon. that just started incorporating full power and bio supersil. So they got silica and they've got humic acid, and they incorporated under canopy lighting. So they increased their lights and they added humate substances with silica, and they doubled their yield. They went from around 2.5, 2.4 pounds per light to just under 5 pounds. And I will bet money, and I've got a data on this too, that their terpenes are going to go from somewhere in that 3 range to upwards to that 4.5, closer to 5 mark. And their THC is going to go up, as much as once you get to a certain point, it's all about the genetic potential. And that's really what these substances do, is they allow the plant to produce what it wants to do in its best form.
Yeah, that's an important
point. You can get those numbers, you can
really
get those flavors, because these are the things that plants do to not only communicate with each other, but to show that they're happy and healthy. They've got stronger terpenes, and a plant with stronger terpenes is going to make the plant next to it, they compete. So if you stick a stinky plant next to a not stinky plant, it's going to want to be like its friend, because it's more resistant, it's more vibrant, it's more stinky. This is one of the things they do in ag crops. They take the stinkiest ones and they put them together to get them to smell more. You can do the same thing with cannabis.
Yep. Yeah.
But you got to start.
So obvious. Yet they tell you silica is no good. Silica doesn't do anything. Some silica doesn't do anything.
Right.
Our silica does something.
Exactly. But it does it inside the plant. It's not already broken down. The idea is to let the plant do its own science, on the inside of the plant. Not introduce, not to, you don't have these million, a dozen little jars of these highly concentrated jasmonic acid and silicic acid and all these other acids. Let the plant do that itself naturally, and you don't end up spending $900 on these little 500 ml bottles of this stuff that God knows what they use to extract it and make it. Let the plant do that itself, and it'll reward you every time.
Oh, yeah, it's amazing seeing these plants reach their full potential.
Yeah, no, that's the whole game. The whole thing. My as an agronomist, I have a master's degree in agronomy, and that's crop production. And I got into that much later. That didn't follow, that was in '86. But my thesis was, what are the yield limiting factors of these specific crops that I was working with in Idaho? So we were looking at what are the limiting factors to genetic potential. See, and it turns out if you hit everything right, it's incredible. Like, for instance, they figure the genetic potential of corn is 750 bushels an acre. I got involved with the giant pumpkin people, and getting these giant pumpkin. They have a thing here every year, way off, giant pumpkin thing, and so those people were really getting into it deep, like finding out what the limiting factors are to get a 2,500 pound pumpkin, and of course they're using our products, right?
Yep.
But we kept fine tuning it over the years, and the pumpkins kept getting bigger and bigger. And I won for the giant squash. I thought that was
oh wow.
Oh, nice.
That's part of what we're getting at here. Like, what's holding stuff back, right? Well, this is what's holding things back: the silica, the humic substances, nutrient availability, and disease resistance. And it's as simple as that. Now, all you got to do is convince hundreds of millions of people in an industry of greedy money men and universities that are paid off. That's all we got to do is change that system. See? Okay. The science
so we're almost there.
The answers are easy. They're really
the easy part's been done. The hard work is yet to be had.
Yeah.
And that's showing this to the world and convincing them that this is what's going to make the big difference. And it is. There's a lot of people out there doing good work right now. We're not the only ones.
No. All over the world is a breakout in research. There's never been more research in humic substances, biostimulants, and all that. And I'm working with something right now that's so out of the box that when I try to explain it to people, it's like looking at a Holstein cow, and they're just kind of, what?
Oh yeah.
That's a big jump.
Yeah, there's all the
fungi. It's a fungal phenomenon of what we used to think that you feed plants through the roots And then later on, grudgingly, they admitted that you could feed them through the leaf, foliar application. Now we
Okay.
know, at least I know, I think I'm one of the only ones, that you also feed them through volatile organic compounds that they take up through their leaf that are released to the soil by specific fungi.
Definitely.
And they're more
Well,
potent than all the biostimulants combined. If you control them. And that's the work I'm doing now.
So put simply, we've got beneficial bacteria, we've got beneficial fungus, mycorrhizae. Now we've got beneficial VOCs. Beneficial VOCs are the same thing as black mold, the shit you don't want in your house. Okay. So this one of these funguses was accidentally discovered in a tissue culture lab at the USDA. And this little blob of mold showed up in a tissue culture dish, and everything that grew in that dish grew 40% larger and 80% faster. And that was the beginning. And now this, we've identified that particular type of VOC, and now BioAg has got a patent to develop it over the next 25 years. And Bob is heading up that project. You know,
That's
and this has
amazing.
got more potential than almost any other biostimulant package that we've worked with. In fact, here I did some of the preliminary research with this. If I can share a picture here, if that's possible.
Yeah, you should be able to. There should be a share button somewhere
I see a
there.
share here. Yeah. I don't know how.
I don't know how it works neither. I don't use it a
neither
whole
do
lot.
I. But anyway, I did a simple proof of concept where we introduced VOCs into. I had 2 tents. Really simple setup, just a ceramic metal halide and ventilation, no added CO2, and simple lights. And I had plants in hydroponics in bubble buckets, and one side had no VOCs, and the other side did. And they were all pretty similar. It was, if I remember right, it was a super silver hash plant that I was growing from Bodhi seeds. And the side that didn't have any VOCs harvested in about 8.5 weeks at about a little less, right around 8 ounces. And when we had it tested at about 22% THC. The VOC side, it matured about 2 days later than the non-VOC. It produced about 10.5 ounces, and it tested at 28% THC.
Oh, it did work.
Hey, you got it going there, Bob.
Yeah, I'm just fooling around with share. This is my machine. This is the patent.
Holy
drawing
shit!
for the machine that makes full humic. That makes the product full humic.
Wow.
Not a lot of people get to see this.
No.
That's awesome.
No, they don't.
So my question is, being a truck driver, if I was pulling a tanker, could you load this type of product into my tanking trailer?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. We got tanker trucks that come to BioAg in fact, that's this time of year. We got a line of them waiting to pick up full power, fulvic acid, and everything else that we sell in a liquid form. Going out to the farms right now.
Wow. Okay. You let me know when you don't want to share this no one. I'll hide it. So whenever you're
I don't
good.
know how to get out of it.
All right. Here we go.
There we go.
There we are.
Get out of it.
And I want to give a little shout out here to some of those guys we were talking about that were also doing some good work out there. There's Brandon Russ at Bakashi Earthworks, who's got a killer fertilizer line that's Humic based. If you haven't tried it, you should. I think I saw a friend in California use that stuff with some amazing results. Then like you said, there's the guys over at Organics Alive. They got some pretty cool stuff going on with their stuff as well. These are small companies that can use your support. So check them out.
Definitely. So I got a couple questions left before I let you guys go, and then we'll get you off the horn here. And that is, I want to ask Nubs if he's got anything growing currently, and if he doesn't, would he be willing for the audience? Now, this is your discretion, but to show us the procedure of growing a plant from start to finish using the BioAg feeding plan. And
Absolutely.
documenting it, how much you feed, each week, what you're giving it and stuff like that, because just to kind of show the results from a home grower standard. And I feel you're going to get a lot of traffic doing this, and it's going to show. It's going to show the results. Not that we are not believing it, but this will give everybody a chance to see how to do it from a home grower's level, you know.
And if people go back through my Instagram on Nubs Ag Supply over the last couple of years, you'll see the plants and stuff even that I've grown with BioAg up here in my 400-gallon bags.
Okay, definitely. So that's good to know. So I got one more question. Well, actually, two more questions. And the first question I'm going to ask is the Organically Blunt famous question. Now, I don't tell people I'm going to ask this because I want to spring it on them. And the one rule is you cannot think of your answer. The first thought that pops in your head, I want you to blurt it out. So we'll go Josh, Nubs, and then Doctor. So here we go. Josh, if you could smoke with, not sleep, sorry, I'm tired. Smoke with anybody dead or alive, who would it be and why? And plus I got calls coming in left and right, so I apologize. Sorry, guys.
Not a problem. Willie Nelson. He's one of my heroes. Loved him since I was a kid.
Absolutely. And then Nubs, same question, you know.
I would have to say Chong. I've always wanted to meet him, and ever since I was young, you know, it's like, heck yeah.
Definitely. And you, Doctor, as well.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Who do you want to smoke weed with?
If you could smoke and consume the product, which is the plant, with anybody in the world, dead or alive, and just have a conversation with that person, who would you choose?
Well, it popped into my head, just like you said, Terrence McKenna.
Oh, okay. That's a good answer.
My neighbor. He was my neighbor in Honauna, Hawaii.
I was about to say, Didn't you do that, Bob?
Huh?
I said, didn't you do that, Bob?
No, I didn't. Believe it or not. No, it didn't happen.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Wow. It didn't happen. Every time I'd go out to his place, he wasn't there, you know, and I'd meet him at the post office. So we had to pick our mail up. But every time I'd go out, he wasn't there, you know. And
wow.
I see the ayahuasca vines and all that kind of stuff.
Definitely.
But no. And then he died.
Wow.
He got a brain tumor.
Wow.
Unfortunately.
That's crazy.
It never happened. That's why I say, you know, if I had the choice again.
Yep.
Terrence. Good
that's amazing. So I got two questions from the audience that I would like to address, and then one question just to wrap everything up. They want to know, first off, if you guys' products are available in Canada.
Not all of them, but some of them, yes. Our original line, I believe it's a Full Power, Full Humics, and a couple others are also available. The registration, getting stuff into Canada right now is rather difficult, especially with the current political climate, but we are working on getting more products there currently. But right now, yes, you can get BioAg products in Canada.
Well, we have a dealer in Canada, don't we?
We have several. More than one.
Distributor too. That's right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because for people in Alberta, like Edmonton, Alberta, I used to sell it to Canada for years, whether it was registered or not. I just ship it in a plain brown paper bag. Okay, so
quiet, Bob.
In BC, I think we're doing a lot of business in BC right now.
Yes.
Hey, I just shipped some stuff to Australia in a DVD case, so we all got our ways.
Yes.
You bet.
Yep. And Giggles here in the audience, and one of the members in the audience by the name of Giggles wants to know, what's the BioAg start to finish recommendation?
What would you use from start to finish in our line? The two products that there are probably only two that I would use from beginning to end with almost every crop, and that would be the Bio Super Sil and the Full Power. Those can be used in just about every crop, grow, bloom, whatever, as long as they're using the right fertilizer and the right amounts, which is more in grow and much less in bloom, and cutting it off at the correct times. It would be those products. But if you're looking for a step by step, what I would use from beginning to end, that would be probably a combination of several micronutrient supplements throughout grow to stimulate mycorrhizal growth and to stimulate plant growth, along with fulvic acid as a foliar spray with my IPM, along with my amino acids to again increase growth rates. And then in flower, I would use again combinations of micronutrients, seaweed, humic, and fulvic to trigger bloom, along with additional phosphorus and potassium with whatever fertilizer I'm using. And then probably a combination of evolostrum, our all-in-one product as a base, with smaller amounts of the aminos, calamino, and bio-supersil throughout the cycle until the latter half. And then once I got to about 2 weeks from harvest, I would flush with full power for 1 week before switching to plain water and then harvest. And if you would like all of that, I've got it written down in a feed schedule, and you can contact me anytime, and I will gladly send that out to you.
That's awesome. Definitely. So that leads me to my final questions. Where can everybody connect with each one of you? If you got an Instagram, shout it out where people can find you. And then as a whole, as a final question, just where can they find BioAg, and where can they connect with them products?
Okay, well, you can find BioAg products in any quality hydroponic store or farm distribution or ag supply store. We're available in just about every state, and we're available in Europe, South America, Canada, Mexico. We're available on anywhere from a dozen different online retailers. We're available through Nubs Farms if you're lucky enough to get a visit from Nubs Farms this summer, or Growing Pains Distribution. Both of them are very good ways to get it into your grow there here on the West Coast. You can also find it on our online store, which is on Amazon. And that's how you'd get it directly from us. But we always recommend going to your local store before you go to the Amazon. We want to support the little guy and the local guy before we go giving it to someone who doesn't need money.
Yeah,
right.
And if they don't have it, ask for it, because we need to
exactly.
That's the important
Everybody
thing.
can get it. It's just a question of asking for it. In which case, just send them my way. We like to share the wealth with everybody. And how you get a hold of me is I'm on Instagram at I believe it's I think I typed it in backwards at Hedberg.Joshua on Instagram. And I'm available just about anytime. You can also contact me on my email, which is all lowercase joshua.hedberg@bioag.com. I'm always here to help people answer questions and solve garden problems. And if I have something that I can't figure out, I got Bob here to help me. The wisest thing you can say when you're working out a problem is, I don't know, but I know someone who can help.
Right. And Nubs, where can they find you at?
Oh, I'm easily found online. I'm at Nubs Ag Supply on Instagram with the line in between, Nubs Ag Supply. But my phone number also is 801-603-2085. And my email is nubs. I'm kind of losing it. But my email is frickin' nubsfarmsllc@.com, at gmail.com.
Okay.
And then I do have a website, but it just directs you to my email, which is good. It gets you registered. It's nubsfarms.org.
Absolutely.
Very good.
And you, Doctor, not only where can they find you anywhere online, but is there anywhere also where we can kind of watch your studies progress and see what you're working on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I got a YouTube channel. It's at Dr. Faust, DrFaust,
Okay.
hyphen BioAg. So
Awesome.
that's my YouTube channel. And you can be bored silly with, I go on and on and on in great detail. Even my pictures of my research with the fungal dominance versus the bacterial dominance. So everything is explained. It's endless. Some of these things go back to the 90s and the 80s when I was young and in Hawaii and look, different. But yeah, so that my YouTube channel is really my my own personal thing. It's not associated with BioAg. BioAg is a website, it's bioag.com, but I don't sell anything. I'm just
Sure.
providing information. And then my health product website has got lots of good videos with me and Dr. Wanek about the health benefits. Now, this is something, I don't know that we're going to do much about anything else in this world, but you can take care of yourself. And maybe you can't get fulvic in your food, and maybe you got a lot of heavy metals. But this is the way. This is the way to supplement your own diet with humic substances and more. We have the whole line of anti-cancer mushrooms, and I was one of the first ones into this whole mushroom thing. Before Paul Stamets, who's a guy I've known for years and years, but it all fits together. Okay. And I do it all. I mean, I do medicinal mushrooms. I do the whole thing. So Mana Life Lab, Mana, like in Hawaii, it's Mana. Mana is like undefinable. It's an energy. It's a vitality. It's a vigor. Yeah. So Mana Life Lab.
And I'd like to add something there. Do not drink full power. Go to Mana Life Labs and purchase Wujin. That is the edible version of full power that is safe to drink. Do not drink full power, please.
I'm glad you caught that, Josh.
Yeah, well, that's true because a lot of growers, over the years, they said, hey, I started drinking your full power, and I haven't felt this good in years. I'm not bullshitting.
Oh, dude, seriously, I'll tell you,
I can do more work. I feel better, almost 100% of the time.
The first phone question I ever fielded for BioAg was, hey, I've been drinking this full power and I feel fantastic. And I'm like, you need to stop that right now and go to this website and buy this stuff because you're drinking the wrong stuff, sir. Yeah, one's for plants, one's for people. The one in Europe is for the animals, so we got 3 of them. We got people, we got animals, we got plants. Please use the appropriate one for the appropriate thing.
Yeah, because you got to have the directions on how to use it. You can talk to an MD about it.
Exactly.
Me, I'm not that kind of doctor, but but the point of the matter is, look how good your plants do with it. Well, guess what? It's about cells. We all have cells. Everything has cells but a rock. Okay, so
yep.
People say, well, what kind of plants? What will this full power this stuff work on? What are anything with cells? If it's got a cell, it's going to work.
Right.
So that's the story. And I think it's more important that you guys stay healthy. I think that's number one. The grower should maintain his health and viability. Or how can he continue doing what he's doing? I don't know. It just seems to me, I'm 78 years old. Okay. So I'm in top shape, right? And I've been doing this stuff for a long time. And even doctors can't believe it when they check me over, and they see me. And and then I had a stem cell test done and they said, you got the highest stem cells we've ever recorded. And he said, how come? I says, because I take fulvic acid. He said, oh, send me information on that. I did. I never heard from him again.
You're going to put the doctor out of business.
That's what we're up again.
Right.
It's a renaissance. And in the renaissance situations, you're going to get, it's like the pioneers. They're the ones with the arrows in their back. Right?
Yep. Definitely.
So-
Well, with that being said, I appreciate y'all coming on this evening. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with each one of you, hear a little bit of each of your stories, and you guys are welcome back anytime. Don't be afraid to reach out. We are currently booking guests for September, so if you want to come back later in the year, reach out now, because as soon as the spots are filled throughout the rest of the year, I cut it off and have some time. I take about a month for myself now. I didn't do that the first 4 years. Now I'm doing it. I've interviewed over 500 people, so
Wow.
yeah.
No, that's very nice of you, Jay. That's awesome. And I'd absolutely love to come back and just hash it out again with you, with these guys.
Definitely,
Yeah, we gotta
maybe
get the word out.
after you guys'
Absolutely.
outdoor season wraps up, reach back out to me. We'll schedule something. We'll show people how your guys' stuff works on the outdoor stuff, if you're willing to share any of that. And I'm sure a lot of people would love that, because at the end of the day, a lot of us are soil growers that love the sun grown. And especially here in Michigan, we love the knowledge. We'd love to try to hone in our craft, and we have a sun grown competitions here. So,
Good.
Oh, absolutely. I
I'm a
love it back there.
sun-grown guy.
Missouri, Michigan, all of them have definitely been connecting with people that direction.
Yeah.
All
definitely.
right, guys.
So you guys have a great evening.
Have a
Thank you.
wonderful time. Thank you, everybody.
Later, guys.
Yep.
Aloha.